We go. Welcome back to the next episode of the Fit Affiliate podcast. Excited again to have our first three-peat guest, the one and only Mr. Tosh. Excited to have you back for your third go-round, sir, and talk all good things. And, of course, joined by Tony.
Just slip that one in there. Just, of
Yeah.
course, joined by me, the insignificant co-host that I am. It's okay. Happy to be here, guys. I'll just see myself out.
Something's fuzzy a little bit with our connection. I hope it turns out all right.
It'll be okay. Yeah, you're good this end. It'll be fine.
Okay. All right.
It'll work out in the wash.
Lisa does witchcraft on the back end. I say this after every podcast because most of us end up with like internet issues. And I'm like, that was a complete dumpster fire. The internet broke on everybody. And she's like, no, it'll be fine because we get their native files. And I'm like, what? I don't even know what that means. And the next thing you know, the episode goes live. I'm like, oh, turned out all right. It's my internet that always sucks, though, so it's fine.
Yeah. Nothing like a good old native file. Hey, you got the nice little filter going on there, Tony. What you got? Your skin looks all creamy and glowy.
I'm thinking out of Zoom. I'm out of focus, but I can't get it to focus. And if I keep doing it, it'll just got to use this butter knife to focus, and then
it's very high tech here.
It changes, and because I can't reach the thing, but that's the best I get. Anyway, what's up, handsome? Speaking of handsome people, happy to see you.
Yeah,
Did you had a big weekend last weekend?
Ooh, your boy Matt up there in Canada crushed it. What an awesome display of his physical prowess, one thing, his execution, but like how he conducted himself, presented himself, just awesome while he was weathering things and still maintained like this awareness to process cognitively, learn, develop, grow. He's just such a great guy, man.
He's a good dude. I was very jealous that he was going to do it. And because we did one together and I was like, I want to go back and do two. But, he and I both agreed that it was in his best interest that he did it alone. But I had a call with him yesterday and we unpacked a lot of it. And I'm very proud of the outcome of that from him, the growth that he was able to get from that and the lessons that he was able to glean from it. We can probably talk a little bit about, I think for him, Diesel Day 2 was particularly impactful in understanding how this applies to the rest of his life versus, it was outside the physicality that was the primary focus of Diesel Day 1 for him, I think. And it was very cool to talk through that with him yesterday. So that was kind of cool, but we can dig into that one, but that was just cool that you got to do 1 and 2 at the same time. I was like, what a cool opportunity that must have been for people, going through 1 to see people going through 2 and then, kind of vice versa.
Yeah. Matt actually brought that up along with Chadwick and Chaz as well. And just to be able to see a near reflection of potentially who they were, right? Going through the Diesel Day 1, they were able to observe other people now because, when you're going through Diesel Day 1, you're seeing other people because you're doing it with them, but you're so inundated with your own shit. And even while they're doing Diesel Day 2, they're inundated with their shit. Like Diesel Day 2 is designed a little different where there's a lot of opportunity to observe outside of you so that it can reinforce some of the stuff that are learning points with the left hand and watching others, process and unpack things. So it's a really cool experience.
Yeah. And that's the first one, right? That you've done both of them together?
First one we've done both together at a large scale. There's been multiple Diesel Day 2s where it was an individual or 2 individuals, but they were kind of done on the side as special courtesy because they had requested it. So,
all right, like Vince did it with like his wife or something, right? Didn't that happen? Like Vince did, yeah. He went through like Diesel Day 2 while his wife did 1 or something like that, which was kind of cool. No, I think it was a very cool thing to hear about and to dig into, and I mean it's always very cool to see the growth, of the Diesel Day franchise, right? We'll call it the franchise, the program itself, to see it growing, but to the point where it's like, there's the confluence has brought 2 of them together at the same time, and they were both basically full. Like that's a very cool thing to see happen. But we could talk a little bit about that. But the main reason we dragged you back on is because, well, you're handsome and you drive up our viewers when you're on the episode. So that's why we bring you on here. But primarily want to talk about the big fish because I know it happened about a month ago, but I did want to recap with you. We talked to Rex has been on, but I really wanted to catch up with you and get your thoughts on that, let you talk a little bit about that thing and really where we're going with that guy, with Big Fish itself.
Yeah, I'm excited to catch that podcast you did with Rex. I just saw it, I think yesterday or the day before, get advertised on the Instagrams or something. So it's definitely a podcast that I will seek out to listen to, maybe on the drive to the airport today.
Are you going to the airport today? Look at you.
I take Nicole to the airport, and we got the Travis Manning Foundation. That's my number one client.
That's why I was like, where are you going? That's coming up, right? That's like this weekend?
Yeah. 32 individuals here for a week to really dig into leadership and self-identity and how it relates to leadership and your expression of leadership. It really starts with annealing who we are inside, and recognizing who we are, and then the disparity between who we are and who we want to be, so that we can attack a couple things to be better leaders. So it's my premier client every year. I look forward to this as much as, or if not more than the fundraiser itself. It's that big of a deal coming up. But yeah, the fundraiser, what a awesome week.
Yeah, warped my whole reality. Now I just feel like everything has been on a low since then. I'm like, can we just go back to that weekend? It was so much fun leading up to it, but what a cool event. I mean, that was the first one I've been a part of, so I have no real frame of reference, but I've been a part of some other cool things in my life. That was a very cool experience to be a part of. Just to see that many people both working it and working through it was very cool.
It's rewarding for me for two different reasons. One, the sense of community, which I've struck a line through and raised the bar and called it a family, right? It's really the family that we're creating, and being able to share amazing people that are in my life and I'm just being introduced to with each other to create bonds and connections, a sense of purpose and accountability across different things, whether veteran, family member of veteran, or just regular non-military experienced individuals. And I mean, that's what the Big Fish Foundation is all about anyways, right? Like setting those conditions, because that's what allows us to persevere through adversity, is relationships and then our network, our support structure, things like that. And then, personally, it's exceptionally gratifying to watch the growth from year to year to year. We're constantly doing hot washes and self-assessment after every year, and we're implementing corrections and fixes in order to grow, in order to improve. And when you can see that trajectory on a nice growth curve upwards, you're doing something well. If that ever starts to stagnate, that's the time to stop, sit back. What are we not doing in order to be better? And I think that's a parallel message for how we should onboard our lives, and how we should, the world in general. We should be trying to create a positive growth curve in the community and around ourselves, in order, ideally, so that the whole world is on a trajectory upward.
Sure. I mean, having been a part of it, you can definitely see all of that as the event itself unfolds, leading up to the event, watching the event unfold. And I wasn't a part of a lot of the quote unquote hot washes on the backside, but I do know a lot of the conversations that came out of it. So it was a good year generally for fundraising. I think you guys raised, the most it's ever raised in one singular event, correct? Or am I wrong on that one?
You're correct. We just pretty much doubled last year, and we actually still have some donations rolling in, and some money that was promised coming in. So we're going to be a little short of our 200K goal, but man, it was a really big goal, very ambitious. Our previous year was 83 grand, which has afforded us the luxury to be able to host the programs that we did throughout this year. With this year's fundraiser success, we're going to almost be able to double that in terms of offerings to veterans and families, opportunities for that. And we're looking at a land purchase right now. We've got a meeting tomorrow to just kind of run through budget and how it aligns with a 5-year strategy, 5-year goal, to whether or not we're going to actually go into contract as early as Monday next week.
Sweet. That's exciting. But unfortunately, that will mean that Big Fish will leave Mag and go someplace else, or is it going to stay there at Magic Land?
So, but no, I think we have to keep events here. I have the ambition of still doing the 5th annual fundraiser here. I've pretty much got that planned out already. I'm really excited for next year. And but we want to have a piece of property that is owned by Big Fish, owned by the community, by the family that we're creating, and as a place where people can come and go 24/7, 365 to experience it. And then the lofty task of creating the magic there that is up here at our house. But now for the foreseeable future, for the next 6-12 months, this will be a big location, a big part of everything that we do with Big Fish.
I mean, you're not going to hear me talk you out of it so much, because you know that I think that it is like a very magical place on the planet. It's a place that I would say ultimately has saved my life, and I've watched it save many other people's lives. So for that reason, I'm on board. But it's also, I have to be very clear that it is still your home, right? And you got to make sure that you preserve it for that reason. But I know that is, to me, one of the cool parts of both Big Fish and Diesel Day is that there's so much intimacy between you and those events. And I think a lot of that does come from the fact that, like, you bring us home, right? And for that reason, I'm very mindful of the impact that has on those events. But I also don't think that those events wouldn't scale into events offsite as well, being, at the land and stuff like that. Because I know that ultimately anything that you touch is going to kind of end up having that, because you don't just do anything half-assed. That much we know to be true. So I think that, it's cool to hear that you're going to keep them there. But at the same time, I don't think anybody would be shocked to hear that, like, we're going to go someplace else and you'll probably make it just as cool. So I get it for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, family, creating a family starts at home, and there's something special, something powerful, right? Bringing people into our home and treating them like genuinely loved individuals, providing a service, welcome arms into the intimacy and the privacy of our own personal space. I think it's special, and it does set conditions to create a very powerful event. And the challenge ahead will be making this other property have that same feel, and ideally it's bringing it into our home and not so much my home or Nicole and my home, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's, like, I think that's the next step. Like, how are we going to take this new place, give it that home feel, but it's not a Brian Chontosh or a Nicole Carroll home feel. It's a very collective home feel, and I'm looking forward to that. It's gonna be a challenge, but it's certainly doable. But our property is definitely, Nicole and I were just joking last night. It feels like our house is falling apart.
It's a lot of wear and tear, my man.
Yeah, I mean, cupboards are getting smashed and drapes are getting, ruined, and
bro, you've been nonstop.
Significant maintenance cycle. I know.
It's like I've been there. I'm there every single month, I feel like, at this point, which I'm like, I love it. I'm not going to take that away from myself, but, like, I'm like, there is something going on for you guys nonstop. I'm like, I'm going to have to restore some peace and quiet around that, because it is a very peaceful place, but there is a party going on every weekend, it seems like, up there. Yeah. Thank God you have no neighbors, because they'd be like, can you turn music down, please? It's 2 a.m. No, I got people on the back trail. They're doing some stuff. They need to hear the music and get back. Anyways, that aside, I don't doubt your ability to make wherever it goes next will be just as impactful as this one. But I did want to talk about that a little bit, because I think for everybody on the outside, they hear the fundraising cry, right? They see the event. I think it's really easy to get caught up in, like, it's another sort of pseudo athletic endeavor. You got, high level athletes, and you have these veterans doing these things side by side. And one of the things I want to talk about was the fundraising goal is huge, no doubt about it. It's a massive goal. And I think we could do, everybody's service, letting you talk a little bit about, what that money is going to go to and the type of impact that's going to create. Because and not that gets lost in there, but I feel like a lot of people would be well served, because I've heard the vision and I know where it's going. I know what the focus is like. But one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on here was just talk about all the good that's coming out of that event, and really kind of where those things are going, if you want to dig into some of that stuff.
Yeah, let's tackle it. It is a fundraiser, right? It takes money in order to be able to do program opportunities for others, right? It's not we're not trying to make money so that we can fatten a bank account to go on a vacation or have a board meeting at some luxe, destination location. It's to increase our programs both across breadth and depth. And so that's that. But albeit, even though it was a fundraiser, it is an event. It served over 30 plus veterans and their immediate family members. We had husbands and wives and children here at the event, and I think that's very, very important to serve veterans, but also serve their immediate loved ones. And we did that this year. A handful of the veterans that were here I'm trying to make sure I maintain some privacy, going through very, very rough patches. And so while this was a fundraiser, was an event for the collective, it was also a significant opportunity for a handful of key individuals that get selected to come and participate either as an athlete or as a volunteer or just simply as a spectator. And there's a lot of power in that, being able to layer intentions and deliverables. So I would say, we had just over 60 individuals on the property, not counting drop-ins, which were about a dozen or so that came and left throughout the weekend. And kind of bridging the divide, right? Like 30 plus of those, I think it was 36 of those 62 were actually veterans or directly connected to a veteran, which means 20 had never served. However, they're passionate about the veteran community, and we're creating a connection with them. And they just want to come to find a way how they can serve the veteran community, better understand the veteran community, and learn to better support them through a much more intimate appreciation for who veterans are, defeating some of the stereotypes that are out there, right? Yeah. Of what a veteran is. So that I'll be in that. But as a fundraiser, the revenue that was generated, the investments that we received, right? We're not calling them donations, we're calling them investments, because when you put money into our hands, you're investing. You're investing in veterans, you're investing in veterans' families, in their communities, right? So we've made a significant shift in our language there, because I think it's more powerful and it's more representative of what you're doing when you send $25 or $250 or whatever it is. You're making an investment, and the word investment means that if I give you $20, it's worth $25. If I give you $300, it's worth $500, and that's what we strive to do with all of our responsibility around money and programs. So this year, it's actually just went into an arrangement with Horses and Heroes up in Montana, and we're going to do a veteran event up there the first weekend in October. We're opening up another event/workshop for Veterans Plus One. It's going to be a continuing program we do where a lot of these veteran programs, they serve the veteran themselves. So he or she comes to an event, they get worked on, they leave feeling recharged, reinvigorated. We reframe some of the paradigms that maybe that they've been given or have around who they are and in life in general. But then largely they go back home and they lack the ability to connect that to those that didn't come and were a part of our events. So what we're doing is Veteran Plus One or Plus Two. You as a veteran come to an event, but you bring somebody else with you from your community, from your family structure back home, so that we can help with that connection. We can better learn then as veterans, these other individuals that come, and the loved one in your life gets to come and understand a little bit more about you and what you're going through and how to connect. You return back home, and now you have that immediate support structure that you have a renewed connection, a renewed sense of purpose, appreciation, understanding with, in order to lean on each other to make your little circle back wherever it is you're from, better. And really, really excited about that. And then we're just fleshing out the ability to support some of these other programs that we're nested with. We're going to run another workshop up here for veterans, a unit reunion to create some renewed esprit de corps camaraderie amongst a military unit. We're getting into the Coast Guard community now and doing a remote workshop through the Air Force community and also the Army community. So, we're all branches of service foundation, right now, because of my background and the background of a couple of others that are intimate with the execution of the foundation, primarily Marine Corps. But we do not have I don't know how to frame it. We do have a great affinity towards all the other branches of service. It's not just, hey, we're Marines and this is a Marine Corps Foundation. We want to beat back that branding that's occurring because the majority of our participants are Marines. So I'm excited to be able to get some Air Force, some Army, and some Coast Guard individuals into the mix, into the fold.
You know what to say about the Marines. A Marine is a Marine. You all stick together, so it's not a big surprise that there's some degree of fraternal focus there. I get it. I don't think I've ever been around so many Marines in my life as I have until you became my good friend. But now I feel like I'm basically like a de facto sort of pseudo adopted Marine. I'm like, I've got to yell "get some" all the time now. Every time we play dice, but
well, we're assholes, right? For the most part. So I understand that, but when you get to know us, you start to see, wow, they're not such what the stereotype is.
We're all just misunderstood. You guys especially misunderstood. You assholes. So one of the things that I think you talked about in there, in the +1 thing, I think is so interesting because you use a couple of different words. One, you don't use donation, you call it investments. And I think that's important. I know the slogan is, gloves on, not hands out. And you're very specific in terms of the way that you give care to the people. And so you talk about this +1 thing. And what I think is fascinating about this is that there is no shortage. I mean, truly, there's not a shortage of organizations who are out there hoping to do well for their focus in their community. But this reinsertion conversation, I think, is so unique in this +1 thing, because ultimately that's what we're battling all together, right? Like, admittedly, I'm on that other side, right? I'm in the non-veteran side. So for me, through my friendship with you and then being around the organization, I have been able to relearn my relationship and my respect for veterans, and really truly just change that whole epiphany. But one of the things that I became so aware of is something that I don't think a lot of people are that aware of. And the struggle in a lot of situations is just, losing that esprit de corps, getting back to like regular life. And then you lose that whole part of, that structure, that organization, and you get back to normal life and you're just like, it's kind of bland. Right. And so what's interesting about this +1 thing, and one of the things that made me very respectful of the veteran community in general, is like, what you have is that exact problem, right? You bring the people up to the ranch, you change their whole life. Like, they get very motivated and they go back and you're just like, nobody gets it, right? It's like exacerbating the same problem that coming out of service to begin with, where you're just like, nobody gets me. Nobody understands me. Like, where's my dudes? And so putting that program together, I think, is so cool. And I don't know if there's other ones like it, but respectfully, like, that to me seems like such an obvious thing that most people aren't doing.
Yeah, and I wish it was my idea. It was a comment from somebody else and another comment from somebody else that kind of pull a little this and a little this and a little this. And it's like, that sparked something. And it just makes so much sense that you can't see it, right? It's so obvious, but it's right in front of your face, but you're so focused out here, you don't see it. And I'm really, really excited by the program. And I think there's no better place to do it than down at Sonora with the Jail Bar Ranch, like we did 2 years ago with Dan Cirillo and Spartan 7. So we're going to try to replicate something along those lines this coming year.
That's super cool. Yeah, it's like I said, it was something that was completely outside of my radar until I spent so much time with all you guys up there. And and it's something that you experience personally yourself, even if you're not a veteran, when you go through, and we'll talk a little bit about like what happens at like Diesel Day and stuff like that. Like when you go up there and you get your paradigm blown wide open, right? And you come back down off of this magic land, which is, Magnolia, and you're like, oh, I can't relate to anybody, right? You can't even explain to them the things that you endured. And so, putting together a program like that, where when you had talked about this a little bit with, potentially making Diesel Day like for kids plus parents, like it's that same thing where you're just like, it doesn't do you much good to change one half of the household if the other half of the household still, not necessarily changed. And you come back and you're like, you can't change the environment, you can't change the outcome. And I
Yeah.
think that part's cool.
And there's something that I'm recognizing is like, hey, while creating a relationship between myself and another individual, that's great. But my resources to build more and more meaningful relationships are just getting limited and limited, right? And so, while I'm driven by that personally, you only have so much time and energy throughout the day, and as your community, your family grows and grows and grows, you become diluted. It's such greater import for me to create the connection between you and somebody else at the event, so that, while I'm still a common bomb and a common theme and always going to be part of, my focus is creating relationships amongst the people that I bring to events. It's by connecting you and somebody else at an event that is more powerful and will be more able to stand the test of time and rigor, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to do is that, like, I'm not for a shortage of intimate relationships and quality relationships in my life. And I've been doing a really good job of 86 in the relationships that aren't serving me well, or that other individual to the capacity that it should be, so that I can have more space to invest in the relationships that I currently have and allow them to grow, or the opportunities that I have to create relationships between you and somebody else when you come to an event.
Yeah, it's the whole organization, whether it be Diesel Day or the other side of it, it's a hell of an incubator for friendships and relationships. Like some of my better friends, my better texting relationships that I have now have come out of that place up there from whatever craziness that ended up happening.
Yeah.
There's definitely a gift there for it. Maybe it is, jokes aside, a trauma bond that comes out of it a little bit too, where you're just like, we survived it together, right?
Yeah.
There's some of that, but I do think you do a really good job of curating it, and that's why one of the reasons I always try to bring you back on the podcast, especially as it applies to the charitable intent with Big Fish. We're big on the organization that we care about and believe in, and it's so easy to get into behind that one, because not only have I watched what you've done through the work with Big Fish and helping people there, but like even outside of Big Fish and like the Diesel Day stuff like that, there's for sure a gift that comes out of the work that you put forward. And I don't say just to blow smoke up your ass, but like it's the truth, and a lot of that just comes from the realness that is you, that's unapologetically you sometimes. Better or worse, if you've been on the receiving end of it, you're like, fuck, I'm going to get toshed right now. I don't want to come back down off this trail. But like, there's something genuine to that. And if we can play a small role in helping more people get access to that, whether they get direct access and they, register for it or come sign up for it, or even just, invest in it. I think it's so important, because the work that gets done, even if you don't have the means to get to the ranch and don't have a way to be a part of it, watching the long tail of this, I think, will be very cool to see from the years coming. Like, you can kind of see it in the messaging that comes out of things like Rogue and, the people who are attending the event. It's one of those things where you're like, you feel like you're a part of something that's about to go big. And hopefully you feel that same way too, because obviously you are one running the organization. But as somebody who just got to experience it, I'm like, this thing's definitely going to blow up, and it needs all the help it can get, because it's going to go mainstream. And I think that part's very cool, because I think it has the ability to change some minds.
Well, that's what's been on my mind lately. It's almost scary, right? And I'm recognizing I need more help. I need more quality help, and I need to be more accepting of the help I have, and empower the people that want to continue to give and contribute and invest. And that's the part that has me up late at night, is thinking like, yeah, it's getting bigger. I can't let this thing down.
Yeah.
And I don't want to let it down. I don't want to be the obstacle that's keeping it from being what it should be. And so I've been spending a lot of time trying to figure out how not to be just that. And that's bringing more people in to help and contribute, sharing it, because I know I get tremendous value and sense of purpose by doing what I'm doing. And then by logic stance, so would you and you and you and you, if I were able to find the right way to provide the opportunity to get that too, right? To be a part of it to a bigger extent. And that's what I'm doing right now. Moving forward is trying to create opportunities for a couple more to do what I'm doing it to some degree, so that they can have that feedback of, wow, man, because it's saving my life, right? Like you said,
Right.
tongue in cheek, Diesel Day might have saved your life. I don't take that lightly. I think the Big Fish Foundation and Crooked Butterfly Ranch is saving my life, because I do have a sense of purpose, a sense of intimate connection with some other quality human beings. And isn't that really what life is about? Like making however short or long our time is with our life as most valuable as possible, you know? And anyways, not to get touchy feely.
No, I think it's an important conversation that, I think has a little bit more weight coming from, people like yourself as well. But like, it's the truth, right? Like, what is the meaning of life if you can't, I think we all in this community, understand the value of service, and we all throw that around, cliche as it may be, right? Like called to serve and all these things. But when you get to experience it firsthand, you get to see like the long tail implications of that service. I think is cool. And what you do get to see so viscerally that comes out of the back end of the things that happen, up there at Magnolia, it's not only is it rewarding to see the work that's being done at that instance, but to also understand the value and the implication of the work that you can do as a person as well. Like I can tell you that coming down from that ranch many times, like not only are you fired up about your own growth, but you're like, man, you can really, really make an impact on people if you just give a fuck, right? And there's so much of that. And, I think I've told you this 100 times, but what happens at the ranch a lot is that lots of physical, arduous tasks over a long period of time. We all get that. Right? Not a lot of sleep, lots of things happening, but like they all come down to one thing. Like all those events are love. Right? Like, most people who come out of those events, myself included, are left with kind of a moment of like, I don't know if I've ever actually felt love like that and support like that. And you've done a really good job of that. And so, to keeping with touchy feely, like that is an important part of the whole thing. And I think people need to understand that, like, that's where this has to go to.
Yeah. Dr. Vince, made a comment to me right before the event started. I think so highly of Vince. And he said to me, pulled me to the side. He's like, "Hey, Tosh, and you know how Vince gets, and he's, man, you talk about a dude that's intense in such all the right ways." He's like, "I'm playing with this thing. It's be a civilian worth fighting and dying for, and being a veteran worth giving a shit about." And I'm just like, yes, it hit me so hard at such the right time. And that's exactly it, right? Be a civilian.
I think you've just gone on mute, Tosh. No, still on. It's
There he is.
There you go. Yeah, that's better. We just got to where you said be a civilian, and then out you went.
So be a civilian, mic drop. That's not what we want. We want more.
Phone call come through, busted up my Bluetooth. But being a civilian worth fighting and dying for, because that's what veterans are serving, and they want to fight and die for something that's worth fighting and dying for, in addition to each other, right? When you're not, because that's not bullshit. Like on the battlefield, I give two shits about what the government's policies are, foreign policy is this or that. And ultimately, on the battlefield, right, it comes down to fighting for each other. But what a powerful force multiplier it is when you can be connected to a bunch of civilians. It's like, hey, those people back home are worth fighting and dying for. And then also back on it, it's like, hey, then don't be this shithead veteran. Don't be a shithead service member. Remember that. And why don't you be a veteran? Why don't you be a service member? Be a veteran that's actually worth giving a shit about. The people back home, the community that haven't served, who want to support the veteran community. Be somebody of value that's worth them actually caring about. And to me, it's just Vince with his way of words, like, captures like the essence of what's inside of me that I stumble with words to try to get out. And it was just very formative for me to hear him say that, because I'm like, yes, I haven't stopped thinking about it since he told it to me.
It came up that weekend too. And when I did hear it, I was like, yeah, high five. It's like, you definitely encapsulated that. For the record, you're also pretty good with words. That's why you've been on this podcast 3 times. So you don't stumble around with your words. But when when you did say that, I was like, fuck, right? Like that is it boiled down to the thing. And I think it's really easy for a lot of people to step, away from the relationship with veterans and look at, veterans as like this mechanism of a bigger system that they want to rally against and otherwise. And like, you have to understand that, like, no, they're not political pawns or whatever you want to call them. Like, those people are there fighting for each other, for their brother, to get each other home. And like, they're ultimately there in their belief, whether it's true or not, that they are fighting for you because they give a fuck about you, a stranger that you might be. And like, that I think can be meditated on and marinated on by a lot more people a lot more often. And then also vice versa, right? Because like, it's really easy to come home and just be, an entitled sort of self-ingratiating dickhead because you did the time. And you're like, fuck, you guys don't appreciate what I did for you. And so it was such a very succinct way of summing up that very delicate relationship. I was like, slow clap. Like, that was a good one. Like, I think that was very impactful. And you get to see that a lot, I think, up there, very firsthand. And especially, coming out of the tail end of this, one of the things I want to talk about with Matt was like, those lessons that you guys learned on the battlefield. I think, if boiled down and distilled down to the proper time, you guys do get the ability to apply them to the ballroom or the ball field in the breakfast table, right? The ballroom, going dancing, the ball field and the breakfast table, right? Maybe the ballroom, maybe that's the answer. But so for Matt coming through the backside of that, I think it's a gift that comes down for you guys, especially you, because you obviously put this together. But Matt's big epiphany was that, like, I have maintained the principle of the left hand with pretty much all physical and relatively self-serving mental aspects, but I wasn't realizing where I was leaving the left hand behind in the breakfast table, and particularly the boardroom. And, and that is such an empowering thing for people to come out of that. And I think that, he was able to experience it this time as a second attempt through a Diesel Day endeavor and see it. But like, that's what it all comes down to, right? Like, watching you guys come back from it. There's a whole, focus by the business types to go after leadership conversations for people like yourself, because you do have the ability to bring that from the battlefield to the ball field and into the breakfast table. But like, you guys get it to a certain different degree, and I think that part's cool. And you do a really good job of encapsulating that. Listening to Matt just rant about it for like yesterday was like, this is cool.
Yeah. I mean, that's Clint Bruce, right? Like, none of my shit's my own. It's all Clint Bruce, a gentleman I was introduced to a few years ago, and we were talking, and he's like, hey, Tosh, what I hear you say is you're taking lessons that you learned from the battlefield and the ball field, and you're making them applicable to the boardroom and breakfast table. And I'm like, holy shit, Clint, like, just like Vince, right? Like, you just get it, and you'd be able to put the words together. And what is one person's battlefield? In my life, the battlefield was no shit a battlefield, but who's to say that your battlefield isn't, struggling with depression or some family crisis or whatever? That everybody has a different battlefield, and to recognize that the lessons that we learn through those traumatic experiences, and then also the ballpark, right, or the ball field. It's like, hey, we're so, as a society, fascinated with the arena of competition and the NFL and NBA and MLB and whatever. And it's like, yeah, hey, cool, those are great. They're entertaining, to watch. It's a form of entertainment. I get it for those individuals, a profession, but like, let's take lessons from both of those places, the ball field and the battlefield, and let's translate them to where they're significantly important, right? Significantly important to a degree of 90% of our lives, 95% of our lives. That's the boardroom. That's your profession. That's your occupation. That's, your workspace, and interacting with the individuals there to achieve success. and the breakfast table, right? Like your family, your relationships, your loved ones. Let's not just go play baseball and try to beat the opponent, 55 to zip, but and not learn anything that we can take back home to our family and to our loved ones, right? Or that we can take back to the workspace and put it into our profession. I mean, that's what it's all about. And anyways, I'll stop there because I'm just gonna get redundant and babble. But
That's the fun
No
part of bringing
chance.
you on here
Yeah.
to babble.
But that's Clint Bruce, right? That's Clint Bruce.
Yeah.
I mean, if I could be surrounded by Clint Bruce, Vince Ruiz, yourself, I am surrounded with Nicole. Like, man, there's no when you bring quality people together, there's no shortage of quality. That comes out in ways that you never would expect, and you enhance, you accentuate the positives in each other in ways that are different than your own.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, if I distilled you down into one skill set that like Tosh is universally respected for being good at, is your ability to obviously one care about people at a level that is really quite impressive. But in that care, I've never really met people or a person who's as good at separating or introducing who you are as a person versus how you see yourself. And so many people I watch come up there and around you are maybe not even necessarily aware that they're in pursuit of that thing, but they leave there with a much renewed relationship between, the idea of themselves and the person that they really are. And you have done such an interesting job to me in terms of your ability to distill that down. And I don't know where that comes from for you, where that fascination came from, or how you developed that skill set. But fuck me if you're not fucking really, really good at that. And that is, to me, one of the most eye-opening things, that everybody comes away from there with that. Everybody does.
I appreciate that. I really do. It's something that I think about. I'm fascinated with. A lot of years, 25 years, 25 years probably. And through learning by taking a lot of bruises, but finding out largely it really came to the surface of conscious thought at the Naval Academy with Dr. Campbell, and presenting this idea that, who am I? It's a function of who I think I am, who I want to be, and how I show up. Those three different circles, that if you picture a Venn diagram, and the greater we can create convergence of who I want to be, like, because I'm investing in these values and this and who I think I am. Those two circles are probably, but if you spend time thinking on them, you can bring them together. And then, but more importantly, how do I show up for others? I could be like going in here, but if I'm showing up way out here, then it's a combination, I guess, of trying to optimize all three of those areas and bring them together. And it's not a static or a linear, right? Like two-dimensional thing. It's these circles are opening and closing, getting bigger or smaller, depending on situations, depending on where we're at in our lives, transitory highs and lows. As we learn and grow and be afforded different perspectives and philosophies and theories, and it's very complex. And ultimately, it's what I said to the brigade at the Naval Academy. It's what is leadership? Like, it's not sucking at life. That's all it is. Just don't suck at life. Mean that to whatever it means for you. But like, you want to know the key to leadership? Just don't suck at life. Say yes and no, and not yeah, no, nah. Say please and thank you. Shake a hand. Keep your oath. Like, do right, don't do wrong. It's really not that hard. That's all leadership is. Care about others. Like, I don't know. It's really not that complex when you boil it all down. Just don't suck at life.
Yeah. There you have it. I mean, it's just it. Just don't suck at life. And really that central question, I think we would all be well served to ask ourselves more regularly: who are you? I think that a lot of people they'll breeze right past that answer, but to stare and ask yourself and look in that mirror, who are you? Who do you want to be? And who are you now? I think that's an important and impactful thing. And for me, that's what led me to Diesel Day originally, was like that same sort of conversation. But those two things, don't suck at life and who are you, I think are just so simple, but simple is not easy.
Yeah.
And it
I really
takes a lot
want to
of
dig into a
self.
bunch more things about that, but we'll go, Lisa.
I was just going to say, and it takes a lot of awareness and to have the internal fortitude to have that internal look and go, well, how am I showing up? Like I say, I want to be these things and I think I'm these things, but how am I really showing up? And to look at that, to look hard in the mirror and go, well, actually, no, I'm not showing up the way that, I'm projecting or perceiving or want to be. And it takes a certain kind of person who will actually do that work as well, or put them in the right environment of a diesel days to do that work.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta seek these opportunities to have somebody help you pull away your own bullshit filter, because we always, when we look at ourselves, there's this filter that we're looking through of bullshit, and you got to have it pulled away by somebody else, so that you can really expose and look yourself in the mirror right in the eyes. But we can never escape, self-bias, right? It's wired into us. You cannot escape self-bias. And so being surrounded with people that love you enough to tell you the hard things, and for you to have like the confidence, the trust, the appreciation, the humility to receive what a loved one is telling you, because they're telling it from you from like this angle over here. We have this conversation, is who I am. Like, am I, how does it go? Wow, I'm getting ready to do this next week with TMF, and I'm blowing it this morning. And it was from Dr. Campbell. Is like, am I what I am I just forget it. I'll tell you later. I'll text it to you. But the ultimate thing is we think we're somebody, and then do we reinforce that narrative because it's out of convenience to think that way, because that's who we are, how we act, or do we actually spend time internalizing who we want to be, and then we become a representation of who we want to be, albeit imperfect, but not being this self-licking ice cream cone. Oh, this is who I am. And it's really coming from a place of convenience because of whatever vice. Hey, I have these 2 or these 3 things that I decide to pick who I want to be. And then my actions manifest, my behaviors, how I show up and present are because I'm striving to be those things. And that's exactly opposite out of convenience, right? Because that should be challenging to want to be something that's driven or inspired by an ideal.
Yeah, for sure. That's there's a lot in that statement right there. But the whole who am I as a matter of convenience, I think, is one of those things that definitely affects so many people, where it's just, I want to be this version of myself that I am, and I'll be that self-licking ice cream cone, as you sort of call it. Although I guess I'd like to be a
Am I what I believe, or do I just believe what I am? That's the phrasing. And it's said with a little bit more pizzazz, but am I what I believe, or do I believe what I am? The answer could be yes, but anybody that says yes, it's like you need to do a little bit more investigation, because it's most likely not.
Yeah, it's like being a student of life, right? If the answer to that is yes, it's probably time to dig a little bit deeper and do a little bit more with that, right? And like, for me, that was the thing that put me on the airplane, even up to that. Like, I was like, I'm just going to tell Tosh that I'm not coming. I'm going to tell him my flight got canceled. But I was like, his ass will definitely look up my flight and be like, sir, your flight's on time. I'm like, fuck, can't, right? But like, the reason you get on that plane, right? Even up until you're on that plane, it's like, the thing that drove, even for me, was like, is the person who I want to be and the person that I am congruent? And there's only really one way to find out. And the thing that you have put together through Diesel Day was the perfect, lens to be able to do that. And had I known just how many layers would get pulled back, through that process, and in your ability to help with that process, I think, I would have definitely gone just as quickly. But it's one of those things where you have to always be, I guess, investigating it, researching it, or challenging it. Right? It's probably the better word, is challenging it. But you do a fantastic job of it.
I submit that they at times can be congruent, but more often than not, they're not congruent, as long as the direction of travel is towards more congruency, because you're trying to be the person you want to be, right? and our life just takes us all through different travels and paths and challenges and successes. And sometimes we arrive where, oh wow, like I just made that great decision, or I just acted in a way that's in accordance with this in here, and that's great. And then you need to put yourself into another situation where it's challenging, and you might not arrive at exact, congruency, but you're striving for it instead of the other direction.
So true.
Awesome. Well, we're just about, it's probably a good note to put a pin in this one. Thank you
Pin it.
again, Tosh. Love having you on the podcast. And, I know that Tony's going to drag you back on here multiple times. So we'll continue the conversation. Amazing work.
We're going to do one around the table with all three of us, me, you, and Nicole, but not Lisa, because she's stuck on her island, her prison island in Australia. So she doesn't get to come with us.
I'll just be on the screen. It'll be fine.
Yeah,
Someone's got to hear that.
Man, I'll always do anything for you guys. I value Tony so much. Through extension, you, Lisa, and just don't bring me back if I'm not providing value to your community. It's ultimately, at the end of the day, we're doing this because we want to try to provide value to the community that you guys are creating. And my experience with your community through Tony bringing Diesel Day to it for eight individuals now, hopefully more through the future, through doing 2 Diesel Days together with affiliate. As long as I keep adding value, and I really appreciate everybody from your community that showed up here to a Diesel Day. I can't. And if everybody that's shown up for Diesel Day, almost 130 now. We're right at 130.
Wow.
Just wonderful people. I think the individuals that accept that offering self-select themselves because they're good motherfuckers, right?
Sure. Yeah. So that's like a core part of the curriculum now for us with affiliate. Like, listen, you're probably gonna get an invitation to Diesel Day. You can choose it or you can lose it, but it's up to you. But it's coming one way or another.
Yeah.
One day they'll let me off the island. It'll be fine.
All
right.
Lisa there.
Make my way up the mountain. All right, guys. Thanks for your time. Catch you on the next one.